Welcome to Current. Let's sit and chat about news and politics. Welcome to Current. Let's sit and chat about news and politics.
Well, hello, everybody. I don't know what happened to Madam Blog Talk Radio, but she has decided to abandon us tonight, so I lost my cue there for a second. We have Phoebe Lawson here with us. We have Julie O'Brien. And Julie, will I mention everybody who's with you?
Certainly. Yes, absolutely.
All right, so we have Julie O'Brien and we have Ron O'Malley.
Nice to be with you. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Julie, why don't you start off tonight, because this is really a big deal for you guys in Bergen County.
Well, I guess pretty much everyone has seen the news today that the closing of the lanes at the George Washington Bridge has been traced back to a deputy chief of staff of Governor Christie, who sent an email to David Wildstein. David Wildstein, is that his name?
Correct. Yeah.
Saying it's time to cause some traffic problems in Fort Lee. So all of the back and forth about whether or not this was political retribution seems to be confirmed at this point. So the governor came out with a statement later on, and there were many people named in these emails. You know, many from the executive director, the chairman of the Port Authority, to the campaign director and the governor's spokesman. There were a lot of people named in these emails along the way who, it was obvious by the emails, knew what was going on. And the governor's statement really just addressed the one deputy chief of staff, saying that he had been deceived by his deputy chief of staff about this whole thing. Mm-hmm. So it'll be interesting to watch, how people react to that, because anyone who's in New Jersey knows that, for lack of a better word, he's a control freak. So, he runs a very tight office, and it's going to be very hard for anybody who knows him to believe that he didn't have any idea about this.
Well, of course he did.
Of course he did.
And we're going to find out. We're going to dig. We're going to keep digging, and we're going to expose him.
Can I say, Maggie, that either, this is Jan. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Jan.
Hi, Jan.
It's going to look either like he's incompetent and he can't run his staff, or that he's corrupt. I don't think he can come back from this.
I agree.
No, as one person I heard earlier say, the President of the United States has the nuclear launch codes. You can't give those to someone like Chris Christie. He's proven that you can't give him the nuclear launch codes because of the retribution.
There's a legal principle that comes into play at this point.
I'm sorry, BB?
There's a legal principle that comes into play at this point, which is called the master servant rule, which is that the actions of an employee who has been given directions by an employer are legally attributable to the employer. So it becomes a question of New Jersey law, New Jersey and New York state law, and of federal law in the interstate relationship between New York and New Jersey as to whether the actions of Bridget Kelly will be attributed to Governor Christie because she was his employee. It's going to be awfully hard for him to wiggle out of this if the master servant rule is law from New York.
That's very interesting. You could probably get that information to the New Jersey legislators so they're aware of that. I haven't heard anybody raise that issue.
And that's something that Chris Christie, as U.S. Attorney, used in cases against other people.
Exactly. I remember that. And, you know, Steve Phillip is now involved.
Yes.
How so?
Late this evening, before I left the office to get here, he was putting out statements about, you know, what he was going to do, and it's quite interesting. He'll probably make his career on this, and we'll all help him.
I take it he's the Attorney General of New Jersey.
No. He's the new mayor in Newark, right, Julie? Jersey City.
Yeah. There happens to be, there's a little history there that I can give that would actually, I think, be helpful. Julie and I have been talking about this for a few days. I have, you know, some family relatives, and my deceased grandmother was the first woman director in Hudson County years ago, and they have some buildings named after her, so I get in there from time to time. I know Mayor Phillip and the man that preceded him. I watched it closely. If you notice, last week, Mayor Phillip made a comment. He was pressured for an endorsement, which he didn't give, the same as Mayor Sokolich was from Fort Lee. What happened at the end of the day was last week, he was due for grant money for Jersey City on some projects that the state had promised, and they started canceling his meetings and trying to avoid the grant money that he was getting, which he felt was retaliation for his lack of endorsement. And he decided to speak out about it a few days ago. And that's basically how it's unfolded. Now, Maggie, you could educate me on anything else. I've been so glued to watching the whatever you want to call him on TV today, trying to wiggle out of this. Not seeing him, I did not notice any current updates on Mayor Phillip. But that's how that evolved. If that's helpful to everybody.
Oh yeah, that's very helpful. I have to look into that. Jan, you mentioned to me earlier today that you thought somebody had died as a result of the lane closures. That is actually true. A woman died of cardiac arrest while she was waiting for an ambulance.
Well, that's a lawsuit. Mm-hmm. That's a legitimate lawsuit. That's a foreseeable result of the lane closing. And the person who is found to be legally responsible for the lane closing is necessarily legally responsible for the consequences of the lane closing, which created the delay that prevented the woman from getting the medical attention she needed at the time. The same would be true of traffic accidents or any damage to students not arriving at school on time or being prevented in some way from getting to school for an important event.
You know, can I say that I'm getting some really, really bad feedback, and it's hard for me to hear. I don't know where it's coming from.
I'm hearing it as well.
Ooh.
So am I.
I don't think it's not coming from here.
Okay, let's just try one thing.
Is this better?
Yes, I can hear
That's
now.
much better.
Sure.
It sounded like a construction site.
Yeah. Jan, are you playing anything in the background?
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't have anything. I had my computer on Facebook because I thought we were messaging during.
That might be what it is, because when I put you on mute and I put Bob on mute, it goes away.
I don't think I have anything else on at all. I've turned it off now.
Okay, let's see how that works out. Is that better? Better for us?
Yes, I can still hear something, but it's better.
Am I holding up?
Yes,
I'm still hearing echo.
Well, there's nothing we can do about it, so let's continue on.
It's much better than it was. You know, one thing I wanted to say about the death, what I thought about immediately when I heard about that, that they didn't talk about it with Christie has not been addressing that. Do you remember his very first act? I think actually before he was sworn in, or maybe it was his first January, he flew out before the blizzard. And then 2 people died in that blizzard. And he said at a press conference, when he finally got to a press conference, that there was no significant loss of life. And I thought, 2 people died, and it was probably pretty significant to their family members. And he seems to have a callousness that I've always felt this callousness from him, but I'm hoping that this gets exposed from this incident.
Well, I think it was callous of him to joke about personally adjusting the cones that blocked the lane.
Yes.
Yeah, that was
That's not empathy. Whatever it is not empathy. And he has already admitted that he that procedures weren't followed ahead of time to give adequate notice. He said that certain channels weren't gone through to let the people of Fort Lee and the people crossing the Brooklyn Bridge, that the lanes would be closed. So, he's making light of it as best he can, rather than facing any possible human tragedy or human loss. I think the American people will recognize that trait in his character very quickly. But let me put a question to both of you, because you're on the ground in New Jersey. Is there a prosecutor in New Jersey or New York State, a state or federal prosecutor, who would be willing to take Christie on?
Probably not. I could talk about that probably better than anybody. Here would be the issue. The U.S. Attorney's Office that's there, a lot of the folks that were there with Christie, he did take some out, but a lot of the people, including specifically AUSA Rachel Honig, who is his chief operative in there, corrupt operative, might I add, is still there, still indicting people on political matters and things like that. So realistically speaking, even though there is purportedly a Democratic prosecutor in there, he's clearly aligned with Christie and has allowed her to completely continue to run Christie's agenda. So I would say that the federal office in New Jersey would probably not do anything. The Bergen County prosecutor's office, because this happened in Bergen County, would be a possibility. The issue is Christie has not reappointed the Bergen County prosecutor, the person that's there. So I'm going to think that makes that impossible, because now Christie will push to get him out to avoid it. So it would either have to be, and on the New York side, I don't know that they'd have a jurisdiction, so maybe the only hope would be, when somebody pushes for this, would be that in D.C., at the federal level, the AG's office would have to look at it because of the conflicts and the nature of it. But I think the New Jersey U.S. Attorney's Office still has too many Christie people in there that it will not get done.
Julie, what do you think?
Well, there's another legal angle on this. Shall I pursue it? Or?
Go ahead.
Okay. Senator Jay Rockefeller, Democrat of West Virginia, has asked the Department of Transportation to conduct an investigation. And if the Department of Transportation, which is not controlled by Chris Christie,
right,
finds
what can they do on criminal charges, though?
They can appoint a special prosecutor
to issue criminal charges.
That's an excellent question, whether there would be criminal or civil charges, but the federal courts have civil jurisdiction. So either way, there could be a special counsel on the civil side or a special prosecutor on the criminal side appointed in Washington at the recommendation of the Department of Transportation. And that would completely eliminate any control Christie would have over New York state or federal prosecutors.
I mean, I'm hoping that this becomes such an issue that at the federal level it's going to have to be dealt with. But answering your question specifically about prosecuting, the two possibilities in New Jersey, the U.S. Attorney's Office is still controlled by him because that's where he was. And the Bergen County office, that's a long-time Democratic sitting prosecutor who was very effective in his years there, who has not been reappointed. So to answer you specifically, I think one of the things that Christie has in terms of trying to duck some of this is the immediate channels that would be available to do it are not going to be options. And I'm not sure, you'd have to tell me from a legal perspective, but I would think that, the Manhattan district or the New York district might not have jurisdiction because it happened in New Jersey. I'm not sure, but it is an interstate issue, so maybe they could.
Here's an interesting legal scenario, which is that somewhere along the line, whether it's Baroni or Wildstein or Kelly, someone might get a deal offered by the special prosecutor or special counsel from Washington to cooperate. The special counsel from Washington would say to Kelly, cooperate with us, we'll put you in the witness program, you won't spend a day in jail, you'll never have a charge on your record, you'll go someplace else and start a new life. Very tempting.
Do you think that anybody would assume that he's so dangerous?
Well, Jan, you and I both know that he is.
We know that he is, but usually you only offer witness protection to somebody who's where there's a threat of violence. Am I right? I mean, we know he retaliates. No.
No. If a person knows that someone committed a murder or hired someone to commit a murder, but that person is in no way involved except perhaps accidentally overhearing a telephone conversation or a conversation at a bar, but is otherwise uncharged, that person could be placed in a witness program or at least receive a deal.
Let me ask you this question, which I think I understand why Jan, Julie and I have watched, this governor, former U.S. attorney, give deals to people and do things and do all of this. So I think that's why we're looking at that a little different. Let me ask you this question, which I think is probably along the lines of what you're describing, that we would probably have a better understanding. I think what Jan was saying and Julie and I were both thinking, would there be a special prosecutor that would go to, let's say, Bridget Kelly or to Baroni and say, listen, you're involved, you're going to be charged, but rather than doing the minimum 5 years in jail for the violation of public trust, that would be the minimum that you'd get on a state charge, we'll recommend no jail time and you have to cooperate and give us the information. I think that's what we're more used to seeing on the ground here, rather than the witness protection. I think that's probably what. Jan, is that what you were thinking?
Well, I'm not a legal person, so I'm not sure what. I'm not sure. Well, first of all,
to answer that question, yes, it could happen that way.
Okay,
take you off.
I think that's.
It could very definitely happen that way.
I'm sorry, what?
It could happen that way, and that's in New Jersey, and with the federal stuff in New Jersey, that's normally the way it happens. They charge people with something, but they get no punishment.
It becomes a question, perhaps, of whether any of these people are so loyal to Christie that they take the fall. Seems doubtful to me from a distance.
Can I just interject here? We're getting some comments while the show is going on, and a very well-known political commentator from New Jersey has just raised the question, isn't it against the law to use personal email accounts to conduct government business? And I believe it is. Does anybody else have any opinions on that?
To the best of my knowledge, it's not illegal to use personal email accounts, but they are subpoenable. Subpoenable, is that a word?
It can be subpoenaed, yes.
It is now, Julie.
It's a nice word.
Lovely.
But they are subject to subpoena powers. But yes. I'm trying to think back to my days as an elected official, and it was discouraged, but I don't recall it being illegal, but I haven't held public office in 4 years, so that could have changed.
No, what would be on the other side of that coin?
You see, Jeff says the word is discoverable, Julie.
Thank you.
It's discovered. Thanks, Jeff.
Did
Too
somebody
many
already
today? Sorry.
I just have
Using private email makes it easier for a prosecutor or a special counsel to ask questions of the person who writes the private email in a private, circuit.
Sure.
Using New Jersey state government email accounts might create a hurdle over which a special counsel would have to jump. But if you write about something in your private email and it's discoverable. Mm. Which means that you can be asked, you can be deposed.
While we're talking about emails, let me ask your legal opinion. All of the redacted information, now, if you listen to the press conference today, Assemblyman Wisniewski said that they just the attorneys for Baroni and Wildstein just redacted this information without an explanation, and they're not going to accept that, and that these emails that were redacted were actually part of the email chains of other emails, so that they believe that they are related. How long do you think it's going to take to find out what's involved in these emails and what they've taken out?
Well, can I cut in there for a second?
Please.
I believe that under the Society of Professional Journalists Code of Ethics, Sunshine Week, Freedom of Information Act, they must make the full text of those emails available. They have to do it. It may take our special request, but they do have to comply. Phoebe?
I would think there would have to be some legal reason to justify the redaction, and I can't think of any legal reason to justify the redaction, particularly on the part of Baroni and Wildstein, because their resignations happened immediately after the incident. And for a person who resigns to submit redacted information just raises the level of suspicion about these people and gives greater leverage to whoever would want to subpoena the emails and depose them based on everything that's in them.
Well, I'm assuming there probably involve additional people, which is why they took them out.
Well, that's a possibility.
Well, I actually was looking at them online
would have a right
and
to
the
find
points
out
at
what everything was said. Go ahead.
Sorry?
Julie, what were you saying?
Go ahead.
When I was looking at the emails and the text messages online today, the things that were redacted at the point that they started redacting information, it was like in the middle of a conversation. And it looked as though, other people were going to be involved, and they just, my suspicion is that, everything that was redacted had to do with the governor.
Ah, okay.
That's a reasonable suspicion.
Very reasonable.
I spoke with Chris, and he said to tell me only to talk only about the following, that sort of thing, so that these people are not all floating around devoid of their own with no contact with the governor.
Oh, there's no question.
No, it's quite plausible that they're in contact with the governor.
Anyone that has had any experience with that administration, and the three of us talking to you from New Jersey on the phone have, there is no way, there is no possibility on this planet, in this universe, that he was not aware of it. They would have never...
I'm sorry, that what?
That he was not aware of it. There is no way. No possibility.
Yeah.
It's just not in the realm of likelihood.
I agree completely.
If he denies it, though, if he denies that it was him, he will simply look incompetent. So he's either complicit or incompetent.
Oh, there's
no way for him to win.
But I think what's going to happen, I think the difference here, I've been a direct victim of his bullying and what he did when he was in his previous position. Here's the issue. There are now so many people that are going to be involved in this publicly, 8, 9, 10 people, all the way up to the chairman of the Port Authority. My guess is going to be, out of all of them, someone is going to tell the truth. Because at this point, for them to be afraid of him their demise is going to come whether he's mad at them or he's not. So it really isn't going to. It really, at this point, doesn't do. Most people succumb. Listen, it goes back to Mayor Sokolic, who's a good guy. It goes back to Mayor Phillip, that's a good guy. These guys did not want to endorse him, and the governor and his administration directly were taking retribution towards their constituents in their town. What Chris Christie did when he was the U.S. attorney, if you didn't do what he wanted or you didn't tell his people what they wanted to know, he indicted you for whatever reason and, spent, $20 million investigating a tiny little business he had. Whatever he wanted to do, he did, and he's gotten away with it for a long time. So that's basically how he's operated. The issue is it's just finally, with these two things, it's finally starting to come out. But because there are so many people involved here, and Christie is not threatening to put the people in jail and do things, I don't know how of 9 or 10 people are going to be able to all just toe the party line for him. I don't see it happening. I think there'll be a crack in there somewhere. Julie,
of course there's got to be a crack there somewhere. And I don't know if anybody noticed, but in the very first email, Bridget Kelly says, time for some traffic problems in Fort Lee, and Wildstein says, got it. There's no way these two have not been playing dirty tricks together before this.
Oh, for sure.
There was no message back from Wildstein. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Listen, Julie, Jan, and I have the pleasure of knowing her. I mean, she is a ruthless, vindictive, underhanded individual. I mean, we've known her for years. We've seen her operating in Bergen County.
She's from my town.
That's right.
Was
the municipal chair, right?
The municipal chair for the Republicans in my town.
If she is the person you just described, in my opinion, that makes her more likely to turn against Christie than to be loyal to him.
She has she'll do whatever is required. I know, that's why I was saying that. I think she has no character whatsoever, none.
Let me just broaden the frame of reference very briefly. It's that even if somehow Christie, like an eel that you're trying to catch with your bare hand, slithers through this and doesn't get formally charged or does not become legally responsible for the lane closings, I would think that the American people will smell a rat and will say, if this guy is functioning at so low a moral level, then he's not going to be anybody I like to see president of the United States.
Oh, for sure.
You don't retaliate against Sokolic for not endorsing you by creating so much havoc and danger by closing lanes of a massive superhighway in an interstate connection. You just don't do it. And you can't be presidential to do a thing like that.
Can I say that I've always been? I'm still stunned that he's a pretty dysfunctional guy, not in his day-to-day functioning, but emotionally as a therapist. When I look at him, and of course I have not diagnosed him personally because I haven't seen him. I have to say that, or I could lose my license. But this guy is so impulsive, verbally impulsive. He's impulsive in his eating and he's impulsive in his speaking. And it's amazing to me that none of the stories have had legs where he's been really offensive. But I think because just looking at his character, he's going to be so outraged if he's caught and if he's brought to task that he's going to really be pushed to say some really stupid stuff. Unless his handlers can put electric tape over his mouth to silence him, meaning that if they could really just make him not say a word, unless that happens, I think he's going to dig his own grave because he really can't help himself.
But his handlers are all involved.
John?
They're not going to be able to protect. They're all involved. Druniak, what are their names? The spokesperson, that one that always makes all the horrendously nasty comments and snide comments to everybody. Druniak, he's in the emails. The other guy, Stepien, is involved. These are the people that guide him. So who's going to give him any direction? They don't have clean hands here.
I think he's got a pretty deep bench, though, of people who can sit on him, metaphorically, because a lot of people depend on him. They did silence him during
another question in here from our message board, and that is, why did the Buono campaign not pick up on this? Apparently, it was published in the Wall Street Journal on September 17th, and she did not pick up on it at all. Any idea
I'm
why?
going to say something if I can. That goes back, if I can just have a minute, that goes back to something very interesting. Having watched Governor Christie, what he's done, both as U.S. Attorney and Governor, and how he has basically fooled, most of the electorate in terms of what he's done. Here's how this whole thing unfolded. He's been getting away with doing this and his staff members since, early in the 2000s when he was in the U.S. Attorney's Office. They either threatened to indict people, they threatened people. Once he became governor, they were threatening people or holding things over their head. Here's what happened. Mayor Sokolich is a good guy. He had no idea what was going on. He was asked to give an endorsement. He decided that he didn't want to do it, and then all of a sudden was feeling retribution. He did not have any idea that these people issued retribution. He didn't have a lot of experience with the administration. He basically was a mayor of a town that had this retaliation occur, and he basically decided to say, listen, there's no logical sense for this. Either this is, if you read his emails, he said, either this is, retaliatory or come and see me and correct the errors of my way. He says it basically innocently, just there's no other explanation. So this wound up blowing up and coming out because of those emails, but in defense of Senator Buono's campaign, I don't think anybody believed that there was any plausibility to that possibility back in September. And the only reason we've come to find it, if these emails were not subpoenaed and released, I think still no one would believe that this was politically retaliatory. It was the subpoenas. Mayor Sokolich started the ball by getting this, the question out, but he did it innocently. He was like, listen, either it's this or there's another problem. Please tell me how I fix it. It was basically almost a cry for help. How do I resolve this issue? And if there's no resolution, is it retaliatory? And it was these emails. No one in September, when, he was riding high in the polls and he had everybody, convinced that, he was wonderful, no one was going to believe anything that the Buono campaign said about this. So I think that the answer to that is there was nothing that they could do at that point without the documentation that came out today.
Yeah.
Maybe
my memory was that Buono did in fact raise this.
Yeah, but there was.
But again, it was one of those stories that never got legs. You can call Loretta Weinberg, say the press should take a bat to Senator Weinberg and call Bonnie Watson Coleman a murderer and Sheila Oliver a liar and Veneri Huddle a jerk. But none of those stories got legs. Nobody went anywhere with that. And what breaks my heart is that this is the second time his incompetence has caused people to die. First time being the blizzard that nobody paid any attention to. But somebody died because of this. And I'm really not hearing enough about that from the press. There was a death. Yeah, and all this vindictive nastiness goes on and has gone on under his watch, and he's made a lot of people suffer. He's caused a lot of, we went after people with the court system. I mean, we all know that the horrible things he's done. Somebody literally freaking died this time. And that's not the lead part of the story. And as a human being, just a basic human being, I find out heartbreaking that a political scandal has to be about politics to be headline-worthy, as opposed to tragic being headline-worthy.
A point there about Sokolich. He's going to cut in now.
Yeah, Sokolich may have been rubbing Chris the wrong way for some time because Sokolich was complaining about traffic jams and lane inefficiencies in this part of New Jersey, particularly Fort Lee, going back to November of 2010. So it may have been that Christie was sick of hearing about Fort Lee, and when Sokolich refused to endorse him, Christie decided to act based on all the complaints that Sokolich had been putting on record for a good 2.5 years. And as regards Buono not responding to the Fort Lee jammed lane scandal, there's two factors. One, she's a defeated political candidate. How can she have hurt Christie by complaining?
I think the question, the online question was, why didn't she talk about it in September? And I think, and I think that it was fair to say that no one was going to listen. I mean, she probably did raise it.
She did talk about it, and nobody listened.
Nobody was going to listen to it in September.
And we're also very conditioned in New Jersey to understand that the press is really going to give Christie a pass on everything because of the dysfunctional relationship between Christie's administration and the press. You know, the leaking and the threats to stop giving them access and things like that. The press in New Jersey was was afraid of him. They were in love with him and afraid of him at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Because he's a bully. Basically.
Yeah, and nobody wanted to lose access to the stories that his office and the U.S. Attorney's Office like to leak to the press. So, when things like this came down and he would make a joke out of it or, make fun of someone, then they would take that as, as proof that he didn't do anything wrong, and they would let it go. And I think that this time he's, I don't know if it's his arrogance or if this is just a Hail Mary pass, but, saying that he knew nothing about it and he was deceived by little Bridget Kelly, may fly with the New Jersey press, but now that he's a national figure, the national press is not going to let go of this.
And
I don't think
to speak to why people back away from him, I have a friend who is a Democrat, who's run as a Democrat for council in South Jersey, who works at the Department of Human Services with children. I called her for a campaign contribution, and she said to me, Jan, I can't even give you $25. I'm supposed to retire next year, and I'm afraid if they even know that I'm talking to you, I will get fired and I won't get my pension. Just working at the Department of Human Services. Now that's not just Christie. That's his whole administration.
Yeah.
That he is terrorizing people in New Jersey, people who work for the state, people who work for him. I can understand why people don't come out against him. I don't quite understand the press, except what you just said really makes sense. They wouldn't have any access. But I try to explain to people how nasty and vindictive this guy is, and they just think I'm a ranting. Yeah, it is. It is.
Do you think Christie would have the power to silence the Democratic National Committee on a national level? Do you think Christie would have the power to silence Hillary on a national level?
No. I do think this is going to undo him. I do.
I agree with you completely. But, Jan and Julie and Ron in New Jersey, why did everybody vote for him? He has only just been voted back into office.
And it was a tsunami, and I know I got hit by it. I really believe, it's not that I just believe it, I was told by people high up in the Democratic Party that a deal was struck with Christie to leave the safe districts for him alone. And he'd leave the safe districts for the Democrats alone, especially since he had polling in the safe, even in some safe Dem districts, he still won those. So a deal was struck because people are afraid of him. If they wanted to get anything through the legislature, they just did. They're afraid of him. He's just worse than a bully. It's like a gang. It's like, Christie, his folks have colors. You know what I mean? So I don't think the voters knew. The voters I think they were completely ignorant. Ron and Julie, I'd love to hear what you're going to have to say about it. I think they're ignorant about the extent of his...
Ron, do you feel comfortable giving us, any,
on the
insight
election?
on how you were treated? No, on how you were treated by Christie.
Listen, the issue as far as because I was trying to think about what to say about the election, and just before I change the subject on that, I'm speechless at that. I mean, I watched the polling. I realized that. I just wanted to inject something before we leave that. I was a direct victim of Sandy, lost my entire property in Maniloking as a result of the storm, okay? This governor did nothing but literally waddle up and down the boardwalk or the highway or float in, plop in, whatever you want to call it, and waddle around here and there. He did absolutely nothing in any way, shape, or form in terms of aid, in terms of providing feedback. He went out and he indicated that, the permits weren't necessary. All of that was absolutely, positively inaccurate information. He provided no Sandy relief whatsoever. So I have no idea how he was able to develop such a strong base of support throughout the state on the issue, because those that were directly affected by it are very well aware that he didn't provide any significant support.
That's true.
So
that's
so
very
that's
true.
that's why the election to me was such a surprise. I know that he had everybody fooled, that he had done all these things, and that he had been so effective at stuff. But I couldn't understand why folks in the shore areas that were harmed by the storm were not speaking out about the lack of help and the lack of support.
Well, they weren't just not speaking out; they were voting for him, Ron.
Yes, they
voted
couldn't.
for him.
And up in the 39th, they love him. Then the polling that I did, they disliked their representative, but they loved him. And I knew that Buono should never step foot up here, based on my polling. What shocked me was the result of my election, because they hated my opponent, and he won by. I lost by 26 points, and it was a tsunami. It's kind of stunning.
Looking at it from a point of view outside New Jersey, it seems to me that the image of a rapport, the appearance of a rapport between Christie and Obama helped Christie with Democratic voters, in addition to any deals that may have been cut, placing big Republican money and big Democratic money behind Christie in order to keep him trapped in the governor's office, while other people went around making money behind closed doors the way they had before he became governor.
Interesting.
It's true.
Yeah, I think
true.
I think that's a very good point. People who are friends of his do very well. And if you're not a friend of his, you go on a vacation to another part of the country against your will.
Assume that you're in the top 1% or top 5% in net income in New Jersey. Include a 5% that would include Republicans and Democrats. Do you want to put in some governor who would weaken your economic stranglehold over New Jersey?
No, absolutely not.
Who would increase taxes on you?
But he did.
Who might even prosecute some of your minions? No.
But here's what's interesting. I just want to add something to the equation. He presents the fact saying that he did not raise the state taxes. He has cut aid to every municipality by 20, 30, 40%. And he has raised every fee in the state, including, mind you, the shameless manner in which he added additional state fees to Sandy victims. I had to pay $1,570 in state funding fees to get permits to rebuild my house that was damaged in the storm. He put additional fees on the Sandy victims that were direct state fees that the municipalities were collecting. So he did raise taxes, and he did increase expenditures. He just called it,
just indirectly.
Yeah, that we called them tubby taxes. I mean, basically, that's, really what they are. They're tubby taxes. He's added tubby fees and tubby taxes. I mean, that's what he did was he didn't raise the base tax rate, but he added fees and taxes. Fees and charges, permit stuff, which are basically taxes.
However, anytime. Sorry, go ahead, BB.
After this incident, he will cease to be the Jackie Gleason of New Jersey.
I didn't know he was. Oh, my God.
Have you noticed the photographs in the last 2 days, how strained he looks and how much fatter he looks? Yeah. And how much colder his eyes are?
He cannot be fatter. He had lap band surgery, and that never failed.
Oh, he's getting bigger. He's getting wider. I know. Those of us who talk about him begin the emails with, he's still fat.
No, I have a friend who knows this, and I can't say how, but lap band surgery does fail, and his is failing. He's simply eating. Lap band surgery works when you deal with the impulse to overeat. He has an impulse disorder. He really does. And he has the same way that he can't stop himself from saying stupid things, he can't stop himself from eating. And he simply can eat and then eat until he vomits and then go back and eat some more. And that's what he's doing. No, that's what he's doing. That's what he's doing. Pardon me?
Well, I think then if Atlantic City, meaning the mafia, is involved, they'll be very quick to keep him from launching a national campaign. But suddenly, Christie will announce that he's not running for president, and then his status in New Jersey will start to shrink a lot faster than his waistline.
Yeah.
Atlantic City can't control New Jersey if Christie is weak in the state and nationally.
Interesting.
Those brackets need a front, and if he can't give a decent front, he's history.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's always baffled me that this man has been in power. It just baffles me that anybody ever voted for him.
He's not the first American politician of his kind to put a stranglehold on a state. Believe me.
No,
look
but
at
I think
the
he's
history
the first one to do it
before 1945. He's the Huey Long of New Jersey. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, but the first one to do it totally underhandedly, misusing his previous position, misusing his current position to get reelected. I mean, he's done it by completely doing everything completely unethically and underhandedly. And I mean, there's not a word. I mean, those of us that know him and have dealt with him, I mean, there's not a word that comes out of his mouth that's true. I don't think I can't remember the last time I've watched him on there that one thing he said is true. Whenever you watch him, there's nothing that the man says that's true.
Ron, I know his tell when he's about to lie.
But he lied. But, Jan, when is the last time you ever heard him say something factual?
You mean he opens his mouth, Jan?
When the tell that he's lying, his lips are moving.
But forget about when he's like, Jan, what is the last time, how many times have we seen that face on TV in the last couple of months? When is the last time, especially during the campaign, that he got on anything and then told the truth?
Did you hear what I said about the tell? It's when his lips are moving.
Oh, his lips are moving. Okay.
He's incapable of telling the truth.
Yeah.
I don't think he's capable of truth. You know, when he was a freeholder in Morris County, he stepped away, and then they wouldn't give him the line to get reelected.
Amazing.
He's so nasty. His own Republican
Well, because
Party.
he got on the freeholder board and started suing people.
Yeah. Yeah.
As I always say, had it not been for his brother Todd buying him that U.S. attorney's position, Chris Christie would be nothing and nowhere right now.
Well, compared to Huey Long, he certainly wouldn't be, because Huey Long, for all his corruption, built dams, built roads, sank oil rigs, opened up land, irrigated. You know, he rejuvenated industry at all levels in Louisiana.
Yeah.
Perhaps corruptly, perhaps using corrupt methods, but people who were unemployed and not likely to be employed anytime soon after World War I suddenly could get a job in Louisiana because of Huey Long, and that was the basis of his popularity. Obviously, that's a demographic in Louisiana that's homogeneous. You know, everybody's the same class, same race that voted for Huey Long. But tell me what Chris Christie has done for the people of New Jersey, and I will promise you that I will personally fly you to the moon.
Exactly.
Well, I think also, I don't know who's going to take the fall, but Julie, I'd really like to hear your feedback, having you been in that you've been a freeholder, and our infrastructure is not going to tolerate the Super Bowl, and the work has not gotten finished, to the best of my knowledge, to help traffic flow. It seems to me it's going to be a disaster in terms of logistics for the Super Bowl. Who is going to get? Is Donovan going to get the fallout, or Christie, or the freeholders?
I don't know that it's going to. I think it can't fall anywhere but to the Sports and Exposition Authority and Christie,
but they can't,
because they're the ones that made all the deals to get this thing done. And you know that you've got the one bridge on Route 3 that won't be done in time for the Super Bowl because the state held up. The Utilities Authority did not push the utility company to get that work done so that this project could be done. And I think that they thought they could just push it off on Creamer Sanzari, and, you know, they weren't having no part of that. So, but the other issue is that New York is doing all the stuff for the Super Bowl. People are going to stay in New York. There was nothing done to draw people to New Jersey for the Super Bowl, to bring the millions of dollars in tourist money into New Jersey that they could have, but they didn't, because they didn't bother to get any of the infrastructure projects done, and they did nothing with tourism.
Can I throw something else in here that I don't think anybody's thought about? I happen to have some family involvement with some season tickets to the Giants, and I understand how the stadium works and some of those things. Does everybody remember the drama with Christie and the owners of the Jets and the Giants, and some squabbles, and them telling him that he's not going to be in the governor's box, and his response that I'll be in there somewhere or whatever? It would not surprise me that he has a whole plan together to allow this to not go well, and I'm sure he's all prepared on who he's going to blame it on and everything else, and my guess is he's probably fine with it being sabotaged, because he wants to embarrass them because they're not fans of his. I think everybody needs to
Ron, that makes perfect. That's the only thing I've heard so far about the Super Bowl fiasco that makes sense to me.
He's trying to destroy the Jets and the Giants. I mean, listen, the guy's the governor of Jersey. He goes to the Cowboys. I mean, he's just, I mean, the man has no shame. I mean, he just, it's just, you know, and it's all because they didn't want to cater to, you know, the Jets and the Giants didn't want to cater to him. And they're suing him. And they're suing him. So he's going to let it blow up, and he's going to blame them. The problem is going to be, you know, had this event not happened and these emails not have come out, he would have gotten away with it. He would have put his fat face with his big mouth, blustering, blubbery, wobbling around there, saying, "Look at all of this problem." No, really. And you know, this is a disgrace. And how could they do this? And they're incompetent, these owners, and they're money hungry. I could hear him already. But he's not going to be able to get away with it now after this issue. But I think that he has purposely been letting this brew. I think he purposely didn't get the bridges finished and all of that because he wants to push it back on them.
Another way that he hurts the people of New Jersey, because all of those people who were so excited about the Super Bowl and were counting on all of this revenue coming into their businesses are getting none of that. So, again, he's hurt the people of New Jersey for his own personal agenda.
But he loves
once they said he was not going to have the governor's box, you knew that he was going to do whatever. You all mark my words, in 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks, you will see that fat face on TV. You will see him, if he's so off, you will see him on there talking about the management of the Jets and the Giants, I assure you.
Maggie, you should write an article. Maggie, you should write an article. I'd forgotten all about that, Ron. You should pull up that piece, Maggie, and say the bridges are New Jersey. Pardon me?
Listen, those of us that know him It's very easy to figure out he's transparent. There's no surprises there.
And now everything's falling into place.
As a Washington Redskins fan, if I may interject a comment.
No, you can't comment. Sorry.
I'm a Redskins fan, and the Redskin franchise is in trouble. But why would the Jets and the Giants not want the governor of New Jersey to sit in the governor's box at the Super Bowl?
Because there were issues between the Sports and Exposition Authority and the development of the new stadium and the Xanadu project. Christie, although he ran in 2009 and indicted tons of people and went crazy over the Xanadu project, Christie then decided, because he made deals with unions and other people, that he wanted to revive that project and go back on it and work on things. And after the Jets and the Giants had put all of the money into the new stadium and doing that, and that had not been developed, they were not in favor of all of this expansion in that Xanadu project that's abandoned next door. So there was basically, typical Christie, you either agree with him or you become adversaries. So basically, they became adversarial. He started threatening them. And basically, he was blabbing his mouth about who he was going to invite to the Super Bowl. And one of their spokespeople basically came out and said, there's not going to be a governor's box here this year. It's not, a local, unless it's a New Jersey team or something. And I think they did it, kind of tongue-in-cheek, but that was basically how it happened. There was friction regarding the development around the stadium.
So that's why he's a Cowboys fan.
Yeah, so that's when the
because he's a cowboy.
Yeah, that's where. Yes, that's where things deteriorated.
Do you remember that not too long ago he was at a Cowboy game and he sat with the owners of the Cowboys and said,
"I know,
I'm a Cowboys fan."
I saw that.
Yeah, well, I'm from Michigan. We're being loyal to your.
He engages in conflict. To satisfy his ego, he engages in conflict. He must have the upper hand.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, I got it. And now he will keep all that revenue out of New Jersey because everybody would be hung up fighting one another rather than preparing to absorb the revenue coming into the state.
And he would have, typical true to form. Listen, the problem is he's going to have trouble now because I think finally, this is the first time in many years that I watched TV today where you could see that the press people are finally saying to themselves, duh, I think people are finally starting to say, oh, my God, he's lying. I mean, he lies, as we were all saying before. He lies every day of his life. He lies every day, all day. We all know that, but people are just starting to figure that out today. For the first time, people are figuring it out. So when he tries to blame this on the Jets and the Giants, who are not going to have had anything to do with the Super Bowl, it's going to have been the NFL and the Sports and Exposition Authority, he's not going to get away with it because people are going to be able to say things in return now, and he's going to have a credibility issue. So, but I think his plan was to let it blow. He was intentionally letting that blow up. There's no way with him running for president and doing everything else that he was letting that go on without that being part of his, I'm the savior mission. Yeah. That's his mission.
Wow.
Make sense?
It sounds kind of devious.
Has anyone seen the movie Little Caesar starring Edward G. Robinson?
Yeah.
Little Caesar wasn't fat, though. Was Little Caesar fat?
Little Caesar was Edward G. Robinson's first film.
Uh-huh.
The Rise and Fall of a Monster.
Yeah.
He died, shot to death on a hotel doorstep in a blizzard. But between that and the beginning of the film, his career paralleled that of Chris Christie to an astonishing degree.
Wow.
Well,
If you get a chance to watch,
he has run the state of New Jersey like a mob boss.
Or
Yeah,
a little
the
boy
mob
throwing
boss.
tantrums.
And who throws tantrums as a way of intimidating people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to go tell my
Frightening people
dad
into
that
the
he's going to
shadows.
come and blah, blah, blah. You know, it just reminds me of, I just see him as so massively immature and so impulse-ridden. And I have to say that I have a meeting at 8 o'clock, and I'm driving, and I'm on my way. We're doing a fundraiser for cancer. I'll keep you guys posted. It's going to be great music. It's going to be in September. But I need to go organize folks. So I will be with you all next week. This is Jan. I'm going to sign off.
Okay, Jan. Thanks.
Okay, Jan,
Nice
sign off. Thanks for your contributions this evening, and thanks for your insight into the kind of person that Chris Christie is. And while sorry to see you go tonight, I hope you have a safe ride home, and that the next weeks and months go well for you.
Yeah, well, thanks. Well, I hope to be with you guys next week.
Take care, Jan.
Excellent. Okay. See you then,
Bye-bye.
John. Bye. Now, I would like to read Christie's statement on the bridge controversy because, to me, it's just mind-boggling. This is a huge, huge story, and this is all he says. What I've seen today for the first time, I am outraged and deeply saddened to learn that not only was I misled by a member of my staff, but this completely inappropriate and unsanctioned conduct was made without my knowledge. One thing is clear, this type of behavior is unacceptable, and I will not tolerate it because the people of New Jersey, damn it, deserve better. This behavior is not representative of me or my administration in any way, and people will be held responsible for their actions.
Jan would say that is the delusional comment of a control freak. With a narcissistic.
Is that what it is? Yeah. Listen, I'm amazed, first of all, there's 10 people involved in those emails. So here's my question. Nobody's resigned and nobody's been fired. These people are still in their jobs? How about
I thought two of them resigned.
People that were aware of this.
Now, who did resign? Baroni is gone, right?
Baroni is gone and Wildstein is gone.
Right, but his spokesperson, that guy Stepien, all of these people, Mr. Sampson, the chairman of the board, he's appointed by Christie as the chairman of the board, but all of these people were involved in this and notified of this in August before it happened, and they let it happen. How are these people still in office today?
Because I guess Chris Christie didn't know it would all come out in the press.
Yeah, but I mean, why didn't he ask them to resign today? These people are still there. They're still there?
Yeah, that's an interesting.
Looking at it from a legal standpoint, the wheels of the legal engine have yet to start to turn and reach full speed. You can't have a line like the September 9th line of Bridget Kelly. Let's have some traffic problems in Fort Lee, and days later, from Fort Lee, you can't. I don't understand how rational Christie can divorce. from having someone that close to him appear to plan the Fort Lee Devil.
Oh, he totally, there's no question. I mean, he was totally in the middle of it.
No, of course he was. You can tell from that very first email, Ron. The very first email from Bridget to Wildstein.
Yes.
Yeah. She probably came straight out of the meeting.
Anybody given any thoughts to the fact that it's not the first email?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, it's the way it reads. How does she just decide, oh, it's time to cause something, whatever, on the bridge, and he just says, got it?
Okay, let me take everybody down a different road here for a minute on the subject. But here's something I think. I know some of these people, and I think I figured something out. Christie would never in a million years have just allowed this to happen if he thought that these emails were going to be released. Okay? I'm going to make a guess that we're going to find out in the next few days that Wildstein released this as part of his email package to blow it up and take the pressure off himself, because I think he released only part of the email. There were emails and information prior to that. He released that as that first email with Kelly doing that. Basically, there's no way that Christie and Bridget Kelly and those folks could have known that that was in that package. They would have been prepared to have dealt with this. It wouldn't have unfolded the way it did. I think Wildstein put that in there, and then his lawyer filed an injunction for him not to testify tomorrow.
Oh, wow. That's Machiavellian. Geez.
From the standpoint of the
constitutional
right against self-incrimination.
But think about something for a minute. But just think about this. That's not the first email. Wildstein is the one that gave that email over. It was in his package if you listen to Senator Wisniewski today. It's not the first email. Do you think that Bridget Kelly went to work today? Do you think Tubby went to work? These people went to work today knowing that that email was in there? There's no way. There's no way. It doesn't add up.
Now that you say it. Yeah, now that you say it and put it out there, yeah, of course. It makes sense.
I think he sideswiped. I think he blindsided.
They have the right against self-incrimination.
But he has the right
to
listen. Let's talk about Wildstein for a minute. This is a man. Have you noticed, by the way, despite all his history, he was politic, all this. Did you notice there's only one photograph of this man? Only one. And it's with other people? I wonder sometimes if this person is even real. There's nothing. This man is 50 years old. There's only one photograph. Is he an alien? I mean, where? There's more photographs of trees outside of my house online than there are of this man.
Is he married?
I have no idea. I mean, there's one picture of him with three other people in there. It's only half of his face. You can't even see what he looks like if you actually look at it. There's no other photographs of this man.
Wow. Now, what kind of a person is he, Ron?
You know, my experience with him is, believe it or not, with him is limited. When I was chairing one of the county authorities, and I kept making that, top 100 power list in New Jersey and all of that stuff, he used to try to email me and get information from me. But I was always, Julie and I have laughed about this repeatedly, I was always, cautious about somebody who was purportedly a retired mayor that no one knew who it was. So I never really talked freely to him. And I in the early days of the Internet, I was never, a huge email person and stuff like that. So I did not do much to ingratiate myself with him. But a lot of people did. And basically, he was in that position as Christie's stooge. He was there reporting everything back to Christie. That's where Christie got all of his information in the Bergen County Democratic Organization, because he was the Wally Edge guy, the behind-the-scenes guy at Politicker.
That's right.
Remember that?
Maybe you should have remained Wally Edge.
Yeah, well, basically what he did was he gave Christie all of his information.
Wow. And now he's expected to fall on his sword?
Well, I don't think he is. See, what I'm what I'm saying to you is I don't think that he is. I think that he strategically released some of that stuff to sink Bridget Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wow.
I don't think they knew. And I don't think they knew.
She's not going down alone, Ron.
Okay, but who are they tying it to next?
Druniak. Druniak was closest to Christie.
Yeah.
He was
so?
the go-between. He was the press secretary. He was go-between.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure he was in the middle of it. I don't have any doubts. I don't have any doubts about that. But he's not tied in directly in those emails unless he's in some of the redacted stuff, which would be interesting. But if you look carefully at what was released, it appears to me that strategically, I think that Wildstein released certain things that were going to blow this up differently than the administration was prepared for. Because, listen, Julia, you should comment on this. We know what he's like, and he's prepared with his lies way in advance. He was sideswiped by this. He was not prepared.
Is he really that much of a control freak?
Oh, yeah.
Is he?
He was sideswiped by this. How could he not have known? If he was communicating with Wildstein and there wasn't a break there, how could he not have known that this was coming out?
He may have, and this would be consistent with narcissistic self-absorption, he may have thought that Wildstein and Kelly would never betray him and that they would take the fall for him rather than let the great Chris Christie take the fall for originating the idea of delaying. Otherwise, we have to fall back on the theory that he never knew anything, and it was their idea. And gosh,
but remember,
to me,
he was out there. He was out there repeatedly saying my administration had nothing to do with this. So Wildstein releasing the email showing Bridget Kelly's involvement, Wildstein tied it out of his lap and into Christie's front office. You can't tell me that something's not up there.
I'm not
and now, if
that.
you listen carefully to the news comments today, you'll hear that Wildstein's attorney is trying to avoid they filed a notice to show cause for him not to testify before the assembly tomorrow. It's going to be heard in the morning, so he still may be testifying, but the notice for him to show cause was filed.
Wow.
Well,
cut in for just 1
Yes.
second. There's another name in here, Julie. Ted Mann. Who's Ted Mann?
I don't know.
No idea.
That's not a name I've ever heard.
I have a funny feeling it's a made-up name, a code name for something or somebody.
It could be.
Because the response is very strange. It says, Wildstein says to Baroni, Ted Mann just called my cell. And Baroni says, Jesus. And then says, call Druniak immediately.
Is Ted Mann the reporter from the Wall Street Journal?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't recall that name, but we'll find out.
I don't know if it's a reporter, or you could be right. It could just be, a code name for somebody.
Oh. Yeah, I just Googled him. Listen to this. Ted Mann was an American business. Oh, was. He must be dead then. Oh, yeah, he died in 2001.
Interesting. It's like Wally Edge.
Wally Edge. That's who. That was the trade name for Wildstein. Was Wally Edge.
Nobody ever knew who Wally Edge was
he was
until he went to work for the Port Authority.
Now, there is a Ted Mann who's a transportation reporter at the Journal.
Okay, that could be who it was then, because there was this story about in the Journal. I think that they were talking about that day. So maybe.
Yeah. So we'd have to go back to that day, which is the 17th of September, and see what was going on.
That may have been the day that the article appeared in the Journal about the bridge closing.
Yeah, you could be right.
And apparently it was the Road Warrior reporter for the Record who blew this up because he called Foy's office to ask him why the bridge was closed, why the lanes were closed to the bridge, because people were contacting him. And otherwise, Foy may never have known about it. Well, he may not have known about it right away, for another week or so, because there's another exchange in those emails and texts that they had there that, between Bridget Kelly and Wildstein about Foy reopening the bridge and how angry they were that he reopened the lanes.
Well, was this the guy in New York? Because there was some consternation going through the email trail that New York gave them back 3 lanes.
Yes, that was the exchange right there, where they said that he gave them back their lanes, and they were mad about it.
Ron, I have a legal comment based on your remark about the motion to enjoin Wildstein from testifying before the legislature.
Mm-hmm.
I think that such a motion may lie only in the context of a civil action or civil inquiry by a state legislature. The broader constitutional issue is the Fifth Amendment right not to give testimony against yourself, and that right would benefit only a person accused of crime. So strategically, if I'm being called to testify before a state legislature without having been charged with crime, I can't plead the Fifth Amendment because I haven't been charged with crime, so I'll file an injunction against that body saying they have no grounds upon the basis of which to compel my testimony.
Right, because obviously
and of course,
he can't claim
whether that.
That's it. You just answered the question. That's why he doesn't want to go in
front of the New Jersey legislature.
Yeah, and Ron, you have a very, very interesting story because Chris Christie actually gave you a gift. And I don't know if you've disclosed it to everybody tonight. Do you know what I'm talking about?
The gift? I didn't know it was a gift.
Yeah, he gave you a bracelet, Ron. Come on. He did.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about that briefly?
Yeah. I mean, my experience with what happened with me was I was chairing one of the autonomous agencies in the county that was had all the bonding and the power to do the bonding for most of the projects. They were after our county chairman and the council for the Democratic organization had been chasing them, rummaging, sending out FBI agents, and had indicted them on charges by 2008. When that chairman was going to have to leave for a very brief period of time, although it was not my wish, I was announced as the heir apparent to become the chairman. Julie, as you will remember very well, I was to be the replacement chairman. This was right before Christie was getting ready to run. This was in 2008. So Christie had taken out the prior chairman. I was a Democrat from the northern part of the county, chaired my zoning board up here, was doing the stuff at the county, was relatively non-controversial, did some charity work, looked like I was going to be an Irish person emerging into the chairmanship. Within 2 weeks of that article hitting the paper, the FBI was at my office, 39 of them for 11 hours, rummaging through my office and terrorizing me with questions and all kinds of information. It was within 2 weeks of that article hitting the paper. Suffice it to say, I decided not to become the county chairman. And in a future,
so it was just intimidation.
Yes, and in a future conversation when we have more time, we'll talk about what happened between 2009 and 2012, and a little bit of time that I did, I wound up, just deciding to get it over with and take it, take a way out of it rather than to continue to fight it because my attorneys were in cahoots with his prosecutors and all that. So we can, it's a long story for a day when we don't have other things going on. But yes, that is the power and the capability of what he's capable of doing. It was done to me firsthand, and it is something that I've been trying to talk about for the last few months. And I'm hoping that as all this attention starts coming out there, something that I can talk about in a lot more detail as people start to realize what this man is really all about.
Yeah, well, there are a couple of media
horrible, horrendous. He spent his whole time. He knew that he had to win Bergen County, so he took out the chairman. And as soon as that chairman was taken out, and it looked like I was going to emerge in, they came after me. And the person that was coming behind me, they knew was weak and couldn't do anything, so we just lost election after election for 2 years. And that's exactly what Christie wanted. Yep.
Yeah, Machiavellian, really. Ron, maybe you could come back next week and we'll go into that whole topic.
Yeah, I'd be delighted. And we'll have a lot more to talk about as we watch Tubby sweat, for sure. But I'm laughing with what you were saying before. I'm watching the pictures of him on TV because Julie and I are sitting here watching as they're on TV. He's sweating and he's as fat as ever over the last few days. So obviously this is...
There's a strain in his face that you haven't seen before.
I remarked on that earlier.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm agreeing with your comment. Yeah, there's no question about that. It's very evident. Very evident. But yes, I would be happy to come back on and talk
this story is going to play continuously because it's going to become a part of the national Republican legacy leading up to the 2016 election. If Christie falls by the wayside before or during his appearances before the National Governors Association, then the search will begin to find his replacement.
Well, let me ask
and
you
that
this
replacement will be dancing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you talk about a replacement for a second. Let me just ask this question because you're making a great point. His comment, you just read his comment, one of my staff deceived me, which means he doesn't know what's going on in his front office. How can the Republican governors in this country allow him to be the chairman of the association? He can't control what's going on in his state, and he's running around the country representing them. I don't see how he stays in that position. If his posture with this is going to be, I didn't know about it, they duped me, then clearly he needs to be here doing his job. I don't know how he stays in that position.
Well, I think there's a legal basis for that, and I brought the legal basis for it up earlier, which is that he's the governor of his state, and that he doesn't know anything about what his employees are doing. The activity of the employee, by law, if it is law in New Jersey, is attributed to the governor. So even if he sits up, a hearing, I don't know anything about it, the law will impute to him knowledge of what people in his inner circle did. So, that will harm him because he will, by saying he's ignorant, reveal his naivete legally. And if whoever is strong enough to stand up to him presents the master-servant law as binding on Christie,
that
will tighten the noose.
Yeah, very interesting. Very, very interesting.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to, after the show, I want to see what everybody else in Washington are saying about this whole thing, because it was really just starting to heat up around 5 o'clock. That's when most of the reporters were filing their stories on it, and they were starting to get, raise some questions I hadn't heard before about Christie.
The New York Times has assigned 2 high-level reporters to investigate Christie on a continuing basis.
Really?
The New York Times and the Washington Post have assigned 2 of their best people to dig beneath the surface. And these are people who've been doing that kind of thing for a while now.
Who are they?
Wow.
I'll have to check my list.
No.
They want to go to lunch with
I have
me?
it right here. But don't be surprised if you read Post and Time stories within the next few days that take this whole thing a little farther afield.
Ron, I will get email addresses for you from the people who are interested.
Sure.
We really need, now that this has started, we all need to save New Jersey from Chris Christie.
Absolutely. And how?
Yeah, we have the momentum now.
We sure do. Yeah, and it's going to be. And I think it's amazing. I would have never thought it would have been this, but I'm so glad that it has been.
But
I think
you know how Machiavellian he is.
Yeah.
He's
well,
just.
This was an easy way to have it happen. Easy way to have it happen. So it was, it was great. Now, when you talk about these other reporters that they've assigned to dig, does that mean they're going to be looking at all stuff that he's done, or are they just going to be looking at this?
Yes, they're going to go beneath the surface
Mm.
in various areas of his history and political life.
That gets very interesting.
The digging is just beginning. I think one name is Barbaro.
I have some Oprah requests and some things that I've done at the state level that would be of significant interest to some of these folks. I'll turn it over to you. We can talk about it on your show and then maybe share it with some people. Some of the people.
The show will be about you. Next week will be the all Ron all the time show.
I don't know if we're ready for that.
Until you get tired of talking.
Yeah.
But
I don't know
Julie,
if we're ready for that, but it could be fun for sure.
I think we're ready.
Point, I
Julie?
did a Google search for images of David Wildstein.
There's none. It's
There is only that one picture.
There's one picture. And it's not even.
And there's a high school picture of him, but other than that, it's just that one picture.
But it's not even a picture of him. It's like half of his face with someone else. It's not even him. The man is like a creature. It's beyond.
That's what
there's no
Have you
pictures of
visited
him
the
anywhere.
Black Lagoon recently, Ron?
I'm sorry?
Have you visited
I didn't
the
hear
Black
what you just said.
Lagoon
I'm sorry.
recently? Have you visited the Black Lagoon recently?
Oh,
That's
the Black
where the
Lagoon?
creature is.
No. But he looks like something that would come out of it, though, for sure. I mean, but you have to go online and just look. It's half of his face, and that's it. It's one of the most amazing things you'll ever see. It's just bizarre. Extremely, extremely bizarre. But I think now that what does he do next is my question for both of you. What's his next
What
move?
does he do next?
Yeah.
Chris Christie.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
What's his next
he's
move?
probably going to have his staff will be up all night tonight. They'll be working on all aspects of damage control.
Okay.
But
how does
I
he
think
work?
it's too late.
But how does he work on damage control with staff members that are all implicated in these emails? They're all in this email
I would
chain.
say he will bring in an outside PR firm
Okay.
if he doesn't already have one.
You need more than
Is he
that.
going to
You
do
need
that
more.
at taxpayer expense?
Of course he will. Yeah.
Okay. So he does that at taxpayer expense, so that should be our first question. Right?
The
Yeah.
law will slice through his PR firm image like a hot knife through melting butter. He's going to have to come up with a legal way of suppressing evidence and deflecting the evidence that exists onto the people who revealed it. He's going to have to preserve the image of the governorship as pristine and above the fray. It's going to take a lot of legal talent to achieve that.
Agree.
If both
There's
of
a
you
bigger
had to
issue
take,
here, though, guys.
If
What?
both of you had to take a leap into the future 3 weeks from now, 4 weeks from now, where is this story? What's happening?
Ron, that is totally up to me, BB, you, Julie, and Jan.
And also Jay Rockefeller and also the Department of Transportation.
Well,
Absolutely.
if we keep the heat on now that the national, the big problem we've had all along is getting the national press to look at him, to really look at him. They haven't wanted to.
Right.
So now they're looking, and we want to make sure now that they don't just take a quick peek and have good old boy Chris slap them on the back as they go out the door saying, yeah, guys, I told you it was nothing, storm in a teacup.
Well, we're going to do that, and we will continue to work on that.
We definitely will, and we'll make a good start next week as well. And hopefully next week, before we start talking about your experiences, Ron, we'll be able to report to everybody that Chris Christie's abuse of power by using the Attorney General's office the way he is still using it, you know, that has got to have consequences for him now that people know.
I can't wait to talk about it.
Yeah, it'll be terrific. It'll be really great.
Watch the New York Times and watch the Washington Post this week.
Mm-hmm.
I read research today saying that they're sending their best people out to find out what they can.
Yeah, that's what you were saying. We'll have to keep following up on that. Now, do you guys want to wrap it up for tonight?
Whenever you're ready.
All
wrap
righty.
up for tonight, and we'll come back next week, hopefully with a lot more good news and a very compelling story.
It is indeed. Thank you so much, Julie.
Okay,
thank you, Ron.
Thank you for the opportunity to participate. I really enjoyed it.
You're very
Thank
welcome. We'll see you again next week.
Enjoy your boat.
Take care now. Bye-bye.
Best
Good
of luck.
night.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Welcome to Current. Let's sit and chat about news and politics.